Have you ever just walked down the street, looked at the buildings around you, and wondered why your city is shaped the exact way that it is? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to take some incredibly dense urban planning syllabus notes and transform them into a comprehensive masterclass on how our cities are actually designed. We are going to decode the secret language of urban planners and see exactly how the spaces we live, work, and plan actually come to life.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with part 1, the foundations. Then we'll move into the toolkit, map out the blueprint, and finally finish up with the reality check.
Let's kick things off with part 1, the foundations, theory, and pioneers.
It is absolutely wild to think that ancient history is literally dictating your commute today. You know those gridiron street patterns and advanced underground drainage systems in modern cities? Well, those paved their way straight out of the Indus Valley civilization around 2500 BCE in places like Harappa. Fast forward to the 5th century BCE, and the Greeks, led by Hippodamus, who's basically the father of town planning, formalized this grid around a central public gathering space called the Agora. The Roman Empire then took that and adopted it into these highly structured military camp layouts known as castrums centered around the Forum. But perhaps the most massive shift happened much later, in the 18th century. The Industrial Revolution brought severe overcrowding in slums, which acted as a huge wake-up call, triggering the sanitary movement and giving birth to the very first Public Health and Housing Acts. Now, as these cities exploded in size, so did the theories on how to actually manage them. If there is just one single name you remember from today, make sure it's Sir Patrick Geddes. Before Geddes, planning was often just about, drawing rigid lines on a map. But he introduced this brilliant concept called the Geddesian triad. It's a sociological approach arguing that planning has to perfectly harmonize 3 core things: folk, which are the people or organisms; work, which is their function; and place, which is their environment. Basically, you can't successfully plan a city without balancing the people, their economy, and their physical space. It's a total package. What's really fascinating is the stark contrast in how later pioneers interpreted what a city should be. Take modernism, heavily championed by Le Corbusier and his radiant city concept. This was a super functional but arguably sterile vision. We're talking high-density vertical towers, massive open green spaces, strict zoning that completely separated homes from businesses, and heavily car-centric design. Think of a city like Chandigarh. But contrasting that entirely, we have the postmodernist reaction led by Jane Jacobs. She absolutely criticized that sterile zoning. Instead, she envisioned these vibrant, mixed-use neighborhoods where short blocks and pedestrian safety ruled the day. Her core philosophy relied on eyes on the street, this really simple but powerful idea that a busy, mixed-use sidewalk is naturally a safe and thriving one.
Moving right along, let's open up section 2, the toolkit, data and forecasting.
So, before a single brick is even laid, planners need a way to control density, right? And they do this using some very specific metrics. The absolutely crucial one to know here is floor area ratio, or FAR. This is the actual legal formula that dictates exactly how dense your neighborhood can be built. You calculate it by taking the total covered building area of all the floors combined and dividing it by the actual plot size. If a city wants to prevent a neighborhood from getting too overcrowded, they lower the FAR. But if they want to encourage high-density, transit-oriented development, they raise it. It's essentially the hidden math defining your city's skyline.
Planners also have to take the economic pulse of a city. And for that, they use a tool called the location quotient. When you're conducting an economic-based analysis, the magic number you're looking for is 1.0. If a local industry has a location quotient above 1.0, that's great news. It means it's a basic exporting sector. It's producing way more than the local city needs and exporting the rest, which actively drives the entire regional economy. But if the number falls below 1.0, that industry is considered a non-basic sector, meaning it really just serves the local market, kind of like your neighborhood grocery store. Of course, a city is literally nothing without its people, so planners have to accurately forecast who will actually be living there in the future. You can't just guess future populations, you've got to use the right demographic model for the right situation. The arithmetic method assumes a constant rate of growth, so it's best for those large, old, saturated cities that are basically running out of room. Then you have the geometric method, which assumes a constant percentage rate, perfect for young, rapidly booming towns. And the incremental method? Well, it combines both, making it the ideal choice for your average city that's seeing a lot of fluctuating past trends. All right, that brings us to section 3, the blueprint, process, and systems. Let's dive right into the actual statutory process of preparing a plan. It's a highly logical, step-by-step journey. First up, you identify the big, long-term goals.
Second, you do the heavy lifting. That's spatial data collection, socioeconomic surveys, and all those population projections we just talked about. Third, the city publishes a draft plan. And here is an incredibly crucial democratic step. There's a legally mandated window where the public can actually raise objections and offer suggestions. Only after every single one of those is resolved do we reach step 4, the final sanction by the government and the actual implementation.
Notice how planning is cleverly layered by both time and scale. Think of it kind of like a funnel. You start with a really broad 20 to 30-year perspective plan, which is essentially just a visionary policy document. That funnels down into a legally binding 20-year master plan that actually allocates land use. Then that master plan breaks down further into a 5-year zonal plan for micro-street networks, which finally becomes a short-term local area plan. That's the one used for immediate on-the-ground neighborhood redevelopment. It's a perfect hierarchy going right from macro vision down to micro execution.
So you might be wondering, how do we actually get the land to build all this stuff without causing massive conflict? Enter town planning schemes, or TPS. Instead of forceful, highly expensive government land acquisition, TPS uses a really clever cooperative land pooling method. Here's how it plays out. Landowners surrender their irregular, unserviced plots of land. The government pools all that land together, deducts about 30 to 40% of it to build public roads and amenities, and then returns the remaining land back to the original owners. The catch? The return plots are slightly smaller, sure, but they are now perfectly shaped, fully serviced with modern infrastructure, and vastly more valuable. It's a total win-win system that's been highly successful in states like Gujarat and Maharashtra. And finally, we hit Section 4, the reality check. Regional and environmental context. Here's the reality check. You absolutely cannot apply a one-size-fits-all master plan everywhere. Take Madhya Pradesh, for example. Because it has India's largest tribal population, regional planning here has to be incredibly sensitive and localized. It legally follows Schedule 5 of the Constitution and the critical 1996 PESA Act. This act is huge because it legally empowers local Gram Sabhas to manage their own resources and stops illegal land alienation. Planners in these regions aren't focused on throwing up high-density skyscrapers. The focus is completely on protecting the ecology and the livelihoods of particularly vulnerable tribal groups, like the Bega, Baria, and Saharia, without forcing rapid disruptive urbanization upon them. Environmentally speaking, planners also have to manage vital water resources across massive river basins, like the Narmada, and they do this using watershed management and the ridge-to-valley principle. Instead of just slapping a dam at the bottom of a river, planners start their interventions at the very highest elevation, the ridge. By using techniques like contour bunding and check dams all the way down into the valley, they naturally slow down rainwater runoff. This drastically prevents soil erosion and massively increases the amount of water that actually recharges back into the local groundwater supply. Speaking of water, cities absolutely must protect their blue-green infrastructure. Madhya Pradesh is actually home to several critical Ramsar sites, which are wetlands of international importance. You've got the Bhoj wetland in Bhopal, Sakya Sagar and Shivpuri, and both Sirpur wetland and Yashwantaka Sagar over in Indore. Planners have to legally mandate strict no-construction buffer zones around these areas because, let's face it, they are under constant, severe threat from real estate encroachment, silting, and eutrophication from raw sewage runoff. All of these environmental protections bring us to a really powerful, universally recognized definition from the 1987 Brundtland Report. It essentially states that true sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Whether you're calculating those floor area ratios, pulling land, or protecting a vulnerable wetland, this is the ultimate guiding star for any urban planner working today. You basically cannot rob tomorrow to pay for today. Well, we've just covered thousands of years of history, the math that literally dictates our skylines, and the laws that protect our environment. So I want to leave you with this one question to think about. As our populations continue to explode and technology advances faster than ever, will the blueprints of our future cities prioritize cars and concrete, repeating the rigid mistakes of the past? Or will they be flexible, sustainable, and inclusive enough to truly serve both the people and the planet? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you never look at your city streets the exact same way again.